couple more minutes. We're rolling up here at top of the hour now. So a few more people showing up. Hi, Sarah. Just in the chat, just put down where you're from as you get here. Just try and figure out where people are at. I don't even think I can pronounce where your town is from. Numkla, did I say that right? At the base of Mount Rainier. I do know where that is. I took my RV up Mount Rainier a few years ago when me and Tom had a Portland office. On the way home, I just wanted the scenic route, not knowing really how bad the roads were along that mountain. That was a difficult drive. Cool. Sparkling clean in Missouri. All right, cool. Ashley's gonna make it. Awesome. Vicki Coleman showing up. Sarah, yeah, North Carolina, near UNC Chapel Hill. Yep, you guys have a beautiful part of the country. I have been to Chapel Hill before. I've never been to Pittsboro, North Carolina, though. All right. Yeah, so everybody kind of jumps in. We will give it one more minute, and then we're going to get started. So, yeah, as you kind of get here, just tell us where you're from. And Enumcla, yeah. So for new guests, we're starting in about one more minute. And if you just put in the chat where you're from, just kind of nice way to kind of make some small talk while we wait. Kind of nice to see where everyone's coming from. So we have people from east to west across the country here, from the East Coast all the way to Washington State. That's pretty cool. I said earlier that I'm terrible at time zones. Tom's on the call. He'll attest to that. I should probably have a standardized way of talking. So in my old life, we kind of avoided that because we used one time zone no matter what we were talking about. It was GMT. It was England's time, which was confusing, but it made kind of figuring out time easier because everyone was always talking about the same time. So that made it. There was a convention for time when I had a different job, made life a little easier. So, all right. It is 12:02. I think it's good to start. We've got most people showing up that are going to make it. So we're going to talk about key performance indicators. These are the things that I'm looking at Better Life Maids to really drive success for my business. And what I really love about KPIs is that they are not just like looking back in the rearview mirror, that they tend to be historical and really show you where you're going as well. So that's really the important thing. So, most of us can talk about the stuff that's above this iceberg in this picture. We know how many jobs we have booked, homes that we have, we're trying to schedule technicians and clean homes and get paid. That's really like the top of the iceberg KPIs. Everyone always knows. And you go to ARCSI or the conventions and everyone wants to talk about how many cleaning technicians they have and how many, customers they have. But that doesn't really tell me enough to tell you whether you have a successful business or not, right? So what is success? Success is beneath the surface. And you need to do certain things and track certain things to get there. So you need to do things like, know your productivity rates and improve them, know your efficiency rates and improve them, improve the lifetime value of your customers by keeping them longer. You need to lower your loaded direct payroll to revenue. So knowing that percentage really helps you make better decisions, and lowering operating expenses as they relate to indirect labor and other costs that are indirect costs of operating your business, and having KPIs for those and managing those. So it can get really easy to be overwhelmed by the numbers, right? But by having some KPIs that you can keep a pulse on your business without being overwhelmed, you kind of pick the most important numbers that you're going to be looking at, on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. So you don't have to dive into every single number that is going to come up. So, that's the point of KPIs, is that they're kind of the pulse of your business, right? They're the keys, right? So you don't need to key in on every single thing that comes your way. So this is kind of an example of a dashboard of some KPIs that really can tell you a lot. And you need to, by the time we've kind of finished this conversation today, I want you to be able to maybe even think about creating your own dashboard that you're looking at for some of these different kind of KPIs that you're using to track success. So obviously some of them are vanity metrics like top line revenue, but the next number here, payroll to revenue, this is my direct payroll. So it doesn't include things like PTO or things like that. It's just the labor that was performed that week, the prior week, really, in this particular instance, and then the week prior to that, as compared to how much revenue we produced. So that number to me signifies, the health of my business right off the bat. And I do try and keep that number right around 36%. That number's creeping up lately. We all know that, but what I actually pay people is higher than that, because that does not include things like, again, PTO, sick time, other benefits. That's another thing. Another number that you can see, I'm getting a pretty healthy amount of revenue per cleaning hour, right? Like, we should all be aspiring to getting healthier numbers with that. So, I think that's a definite, positive trend there. So staff count, not going the way I want. Prior to the pandemic, I probably had 45 technicians, just like all of you. I'm struggling. And I think actually this discussion is going to drive probably my next discussion that I'd like to do. I'd like to do a topic on kind of employee engagement and where we need to go next with kind of, paying our employees more, but also engaging them in our business in a way that gets them, to stay longer and produce more revenue. Because we're going to talk about lifetime value of a customer, but man, what's the lifetime value of a great employee? So I think we need to probably start thinking about that in our businesses as well, and coming up with some KPIs for the lifetime value of an awesome employee. So this number here is red because most people want to drive this down. Well, I'm commissioned. I want to drive this up. I want my people, while they're cleaning, to be making bank. And if I'm billing enough and giving them a percentage that's fair, I want to drive that number as high as possible. And I can drive that up by focusing on really, getting high cleaning hourly rates and driving this up. So we're going to look at some other screens where this is driven down a little bit, because my commercial properties kind of drive this down. But on the residential side, this is really my strong suit. So also looking at quality score, but this is kind of a dashboard view. And there's tons of other information that we can get from this, but we're going to kind of move forward and talk about probably the most important number that you should be looking at to predict your future success. So client churn. Nobody talks about this number that much. Maybe they don't even measure it as much as they should, but low client churn is predictive of the lifetime value of a client. So, basically, you should be doing everything in your power to reduce clients quitting your service. And sometimes we want to get rid of bad customers, especially in a time like this where we want to make room for more profitable customers. But client churn is predictive of really how much a customer is worth to you. And we'll get into more of that. But measuring client satisfaction and delivering on promises are critical to doing this. That's not really within the scope of the discussion today. We're just talking about the numbers to look at. But the number one KPI that I really am like laser focused on a month over month basis and a quarter over quarter basis is keeping my churn at around 2% per month. So that means basically that if I had 100 customers, that I only lose 2. If I can do that, then I'm going to win, because my clients are going to be worth more. And a quick formula to tell you how long a customer will stay is to divide 100 by your current client churn. So for me, my average for the last year is about 2%. We've been driving that number down. So that means my customers stay almost 51 months. That means they're worth that much more. I can spend more money on marketing. I can make other decisions, or spend less money on marketing in a situation like now where we're just very constrained by labor. But I know my customers are going to stay if I keep focusing on the other key metrics that we're going to work on. Does that make sense? The idea that lowering that number really increases the lifetime value, because if this was If this was 5%, right, then this customer would only be worth 20 months to you, right? So you want to increase the time that they stay to increase the lifetime value. So another critical thing that I'm looking to increase every single day is how much revenue per job that I'm doing. So this number is about $166 for us, last quarter. So higher revenue per job trends predict better returns on each labor hour you have available, and also helps predict lifetime value of your clients. So this number needs to track to revenue per hour. So this number above, this number is driven down here for us right now because we have some commercial jobs that we're really getting rid of. In fact, I'm firing a customer that pays us $13,000 a month right now because they would not take a price increase, and this is driving down my overall revenue per job hour. Now, for a lot of you, 48.51 would be great. For me, it's not enough because we want to be able to pay these employees, significant wages, and to do that, I need to redeploy those employees making $13,000 a month to probably work that makes $18,000 to $20,000 a month instead. So, really knowing what you're doing revenue per job is important. And I include that for deep cleans and single cleans. It all is the same. And for us right now, we're not even taking on new customers unless they're signing up for recurring service. So I'm not even taking any one-time jobs, to be totally honest. I don't need to. I don't need the extra headache of one-time jobs. I need to be laser focused on my recurring revenue. And so that number might be a little higher if you have a lot of one-time jobs, but that's where mine stands. So client counts are great, and that's like really an important thing to know. But how many jobs you're doing per week is really a more predictive stat to help you determine things like how many employees you need and resources that you need to deploy. So you can grow jobs per week in other ways too, because you can increase the frequency that your existing customers have, things like that. But the real thing is, for most of us, we can predict how many employees we need by how many jobs per week we do. So for us, this number is growing. This was taken a screenshot maybe a week ago. So the first week of the month. So jobs per week, though, if you divide that somewhere between 8 and 9 for your business, so for us, like 8.5 to 9, but divide that number and you'll hit on the head how much staff you currently have. Probably it'll probably line up exactly with how many staff members you have. And if you can see that you're growing, 7, 8, 9, 10 jobs a week, a week in a monthly basis, that means that you need to hire employees, right? So you can tag this number to how many employees you have. One little quick formula we're going to do is we're going to multiply our jobs per week times 52 and divide by 12. And that'll tell us how many cleanings our average customer does per month. And we're going to do that a little bit later. We're going to need that to kind of figure out the lifetime value of a customer. But the real quick formula for us was, 222 times 52 divided by 12. So that's 962 jobs per month divided by the total customer count, 551. And it's not quite a true customer count. Our true customer count is actually a little lower. This is actually service sets. So I could go back to a different report and actually get a truer number. But for quick math, I just use this. A service set is a term we use in our software that determines, like, let's say somebody has they have like multiple frequencies per week, like a commercial account, or like they get their house cleaned twice a month, but each time is different. That would be a service set. So this isn't quite the right number, but for math here, I just used it just to reference. So 1.75 cleanings per month. So now we can figure out lifetime value of a customer. So, it'd be nice to put this up front, but it takes some math to get here. In the future, this is something I want to build into the Made Central forecasting and reporting. It's in the planning stages now to do this, so that this is an upfront number. But right now, the math is pretty simple. So So that average months, that 50 months that we service a customer, to times the revenue per job, times the jobs per month, that tells me that a customer is worth $14,788 as long as we keep that churn down. So what number has the most impact on this? It's absolutely churn. If I got my prices up $5, that is not as impactful as reducing churn by even 0.5%, right? Just stopping losing customers, it really increases how much a customer on average is worth to your customer or worth to your company over time. So you need tools to measure and fulfill promises to hit these kind of numbers. So if your churn is higher than that right now, you need to identify why that is. What things are you missing in your processes as far as the promises you make during the sales to fulfill their promises and keep them long term? Because if you are finding that your lifetime value of a customer, which on industry average is closer to $4,000 or $5,000, you can't spend as much money on marketing. You can't pay your people as well. You got to connect the dots here. But if you can increase the lifetime value of a customer, you can do so much more as a business. Even with a smaller company, you can still be making more profits because you're not spending it all on marketing, on retraining employees on each home. So those are all kind of things to look at.
Matt, Ashley Matuska wanted to know if this is going to be recorded for later because she came in late.
Yeah, it's all recorded. So I will, everyone that registered, I will do my best to get you the link to the recording here by tomorrow. Okay. So definitely we'll do that. So thank you for that. So I wasn't watching those at all. Thank you for helping with that. So efficiency, that's another metric that's going to help you. So efficiency measures how well you schedule your jobs and how well your people use your time. So, it's only measuring how much time a technician actually spends cleaning versus unproductive time. So it's not the true measure of success, but it's one piece of the puzzle. So you have some influence on this by how you schedule them, right? But the more efficient you schedule them, the more jobs day you can get them, and that's the more revenue you can produce per technician. That's an important metric because if you have your efficiency lower than a certain point, you might not be able to get as many jobs per day out of a team, things like that. So that's important. And also, if your teams are wasting time, you want to know that too. If they're taking excessive breaks, you should be measuring their efficiency every day and have a good pulse on that. So implications. So improving efficiency will allow you to schedule more revenue per day, improve your return on human capital. However, you can still be way over labor budget, even with high efficiency. This does not account for employees exceeding budgeted times on jobs. So you can be efficient and still be losing money. Does that make sense? Like you can actually be as efficient as you want, but as your teams are spending all this time cleaning, that's efficient versus drive time versus other times, but they still might not be making you money. That's why you need to be measuring productivity. So productivity is a measure of how closely your allowed hours are to how long your technicians are to cleaning a job. You need to be measuring this on every job, like checking in and checking out of jobs, tracking this somehow with GPS, with your cars. Some way you need to be tracking this. So, and then for Christopher Chapman, churn, what definitions are used for churn? Any qualifiers, moving, death, other uncontrollable reasons counted? If so, kudos to your team, Matt. Yeah, that's just everything, Chris. That's like all customer attrition, no matter what the reason, has been 2%. So Liz Trotter challenged me. My churn used to be about 3%, which I thought was as good as it could get. She challenged me a couple of years ago because hers was 2%, and I was like, if Liz can do it, I can do it, right? Like I'm going to figure out how to do this. So to answer your question, it was mostly a company-wide challenge, and we really pushed that as the number one metric that would lead to success. So productivity, you need to be measuring this on every job. So I actually want my productivity to be 100% or above for all my jobs. So some employees are going to be 150%, and for me that's okay. I don't really care as long as the quality scores match up with that, right? So But I'm always looking for variance from allowed hours. And what I also do is I'm measuring this idea of normalized hours is measuring, sometimes an employee is really fast. And so what happens in our businesses, we get a problem customer, and, let's say it was supposed to take 2 hours to clean that house and it's taking everybody 3 hours. So what we do, we send our best people. And so we burn them out on these crap jobs that don't make as much money for them, because they could be doing, jobs where they're making, much more productivity, but their time is wasted. So for example, and sometimes the opposite is true, but so for example, let's see if I can find a good example of this. But so for this house, the allowed hours are, let's find one here, 2.88. Let's see, 2.4. So I'm kind of measuring ones that were high. So I don't have a good example of this here, but here's an example. So this house is taking 2.5 hours, and it's only taking us 2.57 hours to clean it. So, we actually have a fast technician on that house. We've actually given a fast technician this house because the normalized hours on this house are 2.92. If a normal technician was cleaning it, basically like your average Joe on your company team, it would take 2.92 hours. So we're actually off this job by almost 0.4 of an hour. That's a lot of money that we're leaving on the table. And we need to raise this person's price almost 17%. So this is kind of a concept that is built into the software that I do, but you can do this by figuring out like all of your employees and coming up with like a normalized productivity rate. This takes a little bit of math, but it might be worth doing and exploring, because the truth is we put so much pressure on our best employees by giving them the crappiest houses, because they're solving our problems for us. And that's not how we should be solving problems. We should be solving those problems by charging those customers more and increasing the allowed hours for those properties. So again, we're measuring it both on the individual job level and the technician level, and that's how we create these normalized times. So high productivity is great as long as it's tied to both high quality scores and high efficiency. So it's possible to lose all the economic benefit of high productivity by creating inefficient schedules or technicians that don't use their time well between homes. So, a lot of people measure one or the other of these things. You need to really measure both and actually score your employees on both in some way.
Hey, Matt, I had to step out for like 1 second, so I'm not sure if you answered it, but Christopher asked, what definitions are used for churn, any qualifiers, moving, death, any uncontrollable reasons counted?
Yeah, I got to him. Thank you.
Okay, perfect.
Yep. Quality measurement. So constantly measuring customer delight. So customer delight is my term. You can call it whatever you want. Satisfaction. I like the word delight. It sounds nice. But constantly measuring customer delight is critical. So it really doesn't matter what measurement tool you're using. You could create your own survey. You could use any off-the-shelf solution. You could use whatever's built into your software, but you need to be measuring it. I don't care if you're using, Net Promoter Score or a 5.0 score, but you need to have a way to measure it, and then also make sure that you're tracking, where you want to be. So, but the higher response rate you can get, the better the data will be. A few years back, my response rate was like 25%, and I committed to trying to get it up to 50%. And I've seen people get it. There's people on this call that could tell me that their response rate's 80%. I mean, it can be done. It's a cultural shift. And the problem that I see is that everybody's asking for surveys now for everything, because what companies know is if they get this data, they can use it to drive reviews and other things, more effectively. So there is a little bit of survey fatigue, but you need to make sure that your clients, customers, whatever you call them, are bought into the idea of doing this, because it's tied to your employees' success. It's tied to your company's success. So you should be surveying every job, as far as I'm concerned. For me, I did a sales pitch yesterday, or sales talk yesterday on the Cleaning Business Today, the live show, and I talked about it. Every time you go to a customer's house, that's a sale. It's fulfillment of a sale. Does that make sense? you made the sale once on the phone, you got their credit card, but the sale doesn't stop. So every single job is an opportunity to either win that sale and keep winning it for the next time, or lose that customer forever. So I highly suggest you think of your jobs every single day is fulfilling that sale that you've made, and high customer satisfaction and fulfilling of promises is directly tied to that reducing that churn number that I showed earlier. That's going to be really critical to measuring your company's success. So quality management is great, but the data needs to be readily available. So on the right-hand side, I'm not sure how well it's showing on your guys' screen. I'm on a giant screen, so it looks fine to me. But that's actually a technician's dashboard. So on the left-hand side, it says job information. On the right-hand side, it says scorecards. They can click on the history of every job they've ever done at that house, or anyone's ever done at that house, and see what the scorecards have been, what the trends are, things like that. In addition, there's tons of other reporting that you should be looking at. But again, this is in our software where we're looking at it like on the dispatch board, just at a quick glance, you can see it everywhere. It needs to be a part of every decision you make with a customer. So you need to display that in as many places as you possibly can. And that needs to be something that leadership is looking at, dispatchers and technicians. So obviously you're the leader of your company. You should be deeply invested in your quality scores and quality measurement on a daily basis. So again, perceived quality is directly to meeting client expectations, and meeting those expectations consistently will lower your customer churn and increase the lifetime value of your customers. So I have literally found that consistency is probably the number one thing to meeting client expectations. Even though I don't promise them the same, I do promise them the same day, but the only promise that we make is the same day. So I can always make that promise, but we really try and be consistent on the time, and we also try and be on any other promises that we made. So these are flags that come up that we get. Like if we ever try and move somebody out of a time that we've promised them, I would get this time preference flag. If we ever move somebody off a team where they have a preferred technician, or try and put it on a team member or on a technician that they've told us they don't want, we all have that conversation. It's like, I never want her in my house again, right? So we're tracking that. We don't want to do that because that's not going to be meeting customer promises. And then if we move them from the time that we said we were going to do them, if we move them from the time that we said that we were going to be giving them, we need to be tracking that and then sending them an update that we have moved the time. Now, right now, we're not actually even telling customers what time they're going to come. They can see it in their client portal, but we're not sending it in the notifications at the moment. So we have not done that for over a year, and I may never move back to sending out times. Because this was just one morning when a couple of people called in sick and we had to make all these changes and all these preferences weren't met. But we did call all the customers that we were not going to be meeting their technician preferences. So that was an important thing to do. You should be measuring employee turnover. Really, your biggest asset right now that is really hard to control, and really hard to get new people in the door, is your employees, right? So when our focus is on creating profits in our business, you can turn those profits to increase employee pay, benefits, and engagement. So it's not just so that we can make more money, which obviously is great. I mean, that's the goal, right? At the end of the day, we want to have higher bank balances. That's a sign of winning, right? But if we have more profits, we can turn that into benefits like healthcare to make sure people stay longer, to a better pay structure that allows your employees to have a living wage, so that we're not in the conversation of being $11 an hour employers anymore. We don't want to be in that conversation because it's not going to be a winning conversation in the next year. I mean, I used to have an office in Portland with Tom and Liz, and we used to joke about like some of the way the employee practices just didn't work the way we did things in St. Louis or in Portland, or I'm sorry, the way we did things in Charleston or Atlanta or any place else we were doing business. And guess what? Portland has come to St. Louis. Like the same conversations I had years back about it was inhumane to work more than 32 hours a week. I have had those conversations in the last week. I have meeting notes with my staff on how we have to adapt to these employees changing. So tracking your employee turnover and reducing it is critical. So the first 30 days to me is the most critical time. Some of you basically, I've heard in conversations, is my employee turnover is this, but I don't track the first 30 days. I'm like, well, you're missing the whole point. That's the whole boat right there. The first 30 days is the most critical time. There was a gentleman I met years back, and he's like, our employee turnover is like almost zero. And I'm like, well, what about when you need to hire people, you're growing? He's like, well, I don't track that. I'm like, well, that's, you've all had those conversations. Like, but again, the first 30 days is the number one measure of success in hiring and retaining people to me. Because do you guys, I mean, for me to hire somebody right now, but between my Indeed advertising, training them their first 2 weeks, giving them a uniform that we're probably not going to get back, after they've worked a few days and all that stuff, it's well over $2,000. I think it's close to $2,500 at this point, like just to get a single employee hired. And so that's just the upfront cost. But there's a sunk cost to my manager's time and some other things that are in there too. So I mean, so for here, like looking at it so far this year, so we've hired 3 in January and they're all still here. We hired 2 in February, half of them are still here. We hired 4 in March and only 1 of them is still here. So we didn't have such a great, let's see. Oh no, 3 are still here from March. I'm sorry. 25% quit. I'm sorry. I misread that. But and then this report annualizes it as well, annualizes your turnover. But obviously you should know your annual turnover, but your first 30-day credit, the first thing you should do, if you don't know your first 30-day turnover, that's really easy to start figuring out and tracking. Just figure out how many people you hired that month and how many are still here, and kind of look back at that after 30, basically 30 days from their start. I promise you that is going to tell you a lot about your hiring processes and what you're doing right and what you could do better on. So that's really critical. And it doesn't sound like it's tied into all these other things, but your customer satisfaction, your customer turnover, your churn is directly related to how long you keep people. So industry average turnover per year is close to 250%. We can't keep doing that. We can't do that anymore. We can't just think that the next person is going to come in the door behind the last person we just lost, right? That has to stop. We have to rethink that, because we're getting our butts kicked right now. I mean, I am. I have a third less staff in St. Louis than I did a year ago. So what are the problems we need to solve, right? So most businesses do not collect this data in a usable format. You need to be capturing granular data at the client, employee, and business unit level. So business unit is like if you have multiple offices. So that may not apply to everybody here. But if you do, you need to separate it out at each business unit. Data is only good as your understanding of what it means and how it relates to the, oops, I skipped one. So even if data is captured, it's cumbersome to create reports that allow you to understand the health of your business. So, I get it. This is a cumbersome process sometimes, but you need to make the effort to do so. And then data is only as good as your understanding of what it means and how it relates to the results you're trying to achieve. So most businesses have no way to act on the data to improve results in the future. They have no forecasting or models that allow them to easily act on the data they collect. So I told you earlier about just how many people I've brought on as far as customers, and I have some numbers that I can forecast that I need to be hiring this number of people. And that's great. It's a forecast. But then I need to apply activities to do that. Like, how much advertising budget do I need to spend to get there? There's tons of other numbers that you'll start coming up with once you know these key numbers. But I wanted to kind of give you guys a starting point where we have, the ability to get you to this lower line over here on this iceberg of how are you going to improve productivity, efficiency, improve that lifetime value, if you don't have some basic KPIs to kind of begin the process, because there's a ton of other numbers that I'm tracking. These are the ones that I look at every day, and then I dive deeper into some other ones. But once you collect these, you can really make some really intelligent business decisions and really start, again, increasing what you make as far as profits go, and then reinvest that into your business in terms of, key employees, your direct labor. This isn't just about so I can make more money and live in a bigger house, right? Like, I do live in a pretty big house. It doesn't need to be any bigger. Like I do a lot of other things other than just run this cleaning business. I've got some other investments, things like that. So I'm not doing this just to make more money. That I'm pretty well set on. I'm pretty comfortable, and we all probably have our own comfort level. We're probably doing okay. I'm doing this because the business is shifting, and if I don't do this, all this could be gone. If I don't start having a grasp on this now better than I ever have before, the sand is going to move out from underneath me, and I'm not going to be able to have what I have now. So if you're not doing these things now, you really need to get some processes in place as soon as possible. So that's pretty much it. I'd like to open up for questions. My call to action for you is I'm going to copy this. So let me escape from this. I'm going to copy this into the chat. This is going to be for a group demo on Made Central. If you'd like to do that, I'm going to drop that into the chat. I'm going to do a group demo next Thursday, same time as this. So we can kind of look at how Made Central kind of puts all this together. So that's the software that I use and that I'm a partner in helping bring that to the marketplace. So I would love to have as many of you kind of come to that as possible. If you want to schedule a one-on-one demo with me and you're ready to kind of look a little bit more just on your own, you want a little bit one-on-one help, I do have some availability. So you can go to madecentral.com and schedule a one-on-one demo. Chris Chapman, I know you're here. I'd love for you to do that. I want to catch up with you. Anybody else that I'm friends with, feel free to do that. Even if you don't know me and you're wanting to explore, that's great too. If you just want to wait till the group demo and just kind of see, that's fine too. So I'm open to questions now, so you can unmute yourself if you have any questions, and we can kind of dig into this a little bit. Oh, come on now. Don't be shy. I know we covered a lot of stuff. There's a lot of you here.
Hey, Matt.
Hey, who's this?
Pete.
Hey, Pete.
Morning.
What's up, man?
I missed probably the first 5 or 7 minutes, and hopefully you didn't cover it, but I'm just wondering, what do you use and how do you calculate the LTV?
Sure. So all the slides will kind of connect. That'll be in here. So LTV is currently not calculated by our software, but we are going to be putting that into some forecasting tools in the future. I currently use Made Central. All this data is pulled from Made Central. Some of the formulas in the slides are going to be future formulas that are applied. But you are welcome to the slides. I can here. Does anybody want the slides? I can share the slides to the notes as well. Is that helpful to anybody? I'll do it anyway. You guys have an answer. Yes. All right. So let me copy the link here. So, all right. So let me share that with you here. So yeah, feel free to grab those slides. And again, most of this data is being pulled from Made Central, but if you have other software, it's probably there. You just need a way to synthesize it and display it and make it useful to yourself. That's all. That's the real home run of this process, is making like a KPI dashboard of some sort. You can do it with spreadsheets and just plug in this stuff. Like you pull all your reports and do it. You can use Made Central. You can use whatever software you're using. There's a lot of ways to get to that. But I'll get you the video as well.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Matt, I have a question.
Sure. Go ahead, Lauren.
With your report on your cleaners, do you count in that report people that you hire and they don't show up?
No, I don't do that. So here's how I deal with. Here's my workflow for hiring right now. So we're using a applicant tracking system, or ATS. So that's kind of shorthand for a system where all your applications come in. Then they do their onboarding as far as paperwork, and then we require them to do some pre-employment training, and it's like eight hours or so of training, including doing the professional house cleaning program from ARCSI. So that's on sale right now for anybody. I think it's like $500, all you can eat. So that's a great program. I put all my people through it as kind of a pre-employment, like, are you gonna bother to do this? You need to have, basically, they need to have a professional house cleaning certification before they can start up their first day with me. And so once they have that certification, they can show up their first day, show up with that certificate. But that's when they clock in, and I will give them 8 hours of credit for having completed that certification if they show up. So because it's an outside certification, I find that to be a pretty good way of saying this is a job requirement. So that helps with yeah, because that is tough. Like, you hire someone and they don't show up. I don't track those. You are correct. It's only who gets put into Made Central to my production management software.
Thanks.
Yeah. Well, I'll give it another minute, but then we can kind of wrap things up. Anybody else got some questions?
Matt,
right.
for your KPIs, so I mean, majority of that is on Made Central right now, right?
It is.
It's just the different numbers that you're looking for, some of the employee numbers you can't find on there.
No, those are all out of Made Central.
Even for but not your ones that quit. Is that all?
It's all in Made Central.
That's all in Made Central too?
Yeah, that's important to me. So employee engagement is a big part of how Made Central already works. So your employees live and breathe in Made Central. They clock in for the day there. They see their schedule. They do their requests off. They check in and check out of jobs. Those are all kind of basic functions. But we also communicate with them through Made Central via texting and things like that. But we also have other tools that we're planning on rolling out. Employee engagement is probably the number one thing that we all need to be focusing on on industry. And me and Tom literally sat and brainstormed for an hour today. Every single day, we're like, how do we make employee engagement more important in the software? Things like birthdays and stuff like that. That's no brainers because it's all tracked within the software. We need to be doing better on notifying our managers about those things. So even though it doesn't do it today, we plan on in the next 90 days really mapping out what that's going to look like, because we talked about the lifetime value of a customer a little bit.
Yeah,
I need to figure out the lifetime value of an employee. I need to be able to come up with and quantify how much money does that employee make me over time versus other employees. To me, I would love to have a lifetime value of an employee like that. I don't know what that number even looks like. I don't know what the formula is yet. I need to sit down and do some math. I'm usually pretty good about math formulas, but I don't have that one yet. And it needs to be not just in my head and some subjective value of how good an employee is. I need to be able to go to my software and be like, this employee is too valuable to lose. What do I got to do to keep them?
Mm-hmm.
On the back of the envelope, you know what your payroll to revenue number is, so you can back out gross profit from that, and average revenue per technician per week, so you can put that in terms of months, and you take your monthly turnover rate and divide that number into 1, and that's the number of months that you get from a technician on the average, and then you multiply that times the monthly gross profit from an employee, a technician, and that would get you in the ballpark anyway.
Yeah. And then you could figure it out so you could have an average, then you could figure out who's above that average, who's below that. So I think that it's doable. We're thinking through those problems at this moment, how to solve it. Tom's better at the math than I am, but
the employee statistics report, you can run that for a period of time, and it'll give you the revenue that they generated, and you just apply the payroll to revenue number to get the gross profit that they generate for that period of time.
Yeah, so that actually is a good point. You actually have a lot of that in the reporting under the employee stats here within Made Central. So this report's kind of big, so it's going to take a moment to load. So let me just chat away while it does. But it's going to pull a report for like the last 6 months of all the revenue they've generated, all the surveys they've done, all their attendance and things like that. It's a huge report. So like, for example, we'll just start with, let's start with like Lacey here, because I know she's pretty good. So Lacey, she's been with me since 2014. She was hired in November. Just some quick little data on her. In the last 6 months, she's worked 117 days. She's only been late 7 times. She's been off 5 times. And I can apply an attendance score to her based on the last 6 months, based on rules within Made Central. I can see how many jobs she's worked. I can see how much sick time or PTO time she has available and how much she's used. I can look at things like future requests off. I can see her scorecards. So she's gotten 140 scorecards with a 97%. Her response rate's a little lower than I'd like, but not terrible. I can see things like hours that she has had on the clock, or on revenue versus clock hours. How much revenue she's produced for me in 6 months. I mean, that's a pretty, I would be hard pressed for some of you to beat me on this number. She's going to produce almost $90,000 for me for one technician. Now that's one person. I need to figure it out for everybody, but she's not only is she efficient, her revenue per clock hour is really high, and her productivity while cleaning houses is 141%. So some people might think that's bad, but if I tie it to the fact that her customers are really happy and the fact that her customers aren't leaving me, then this is all fine. She's just really fast. She's one of your rock stars that can do it faster than the other people, right? So you have average production rates, but some of those skew higher for your rock stars. So this is an example of, this is if you're collecting all that data and in the software, it's tying it to other things. But this is kind of an example of like a big data dump, and then you got to figure out what to do with it. But if you know your numbers, you can use this data in really creative ways.
Yeah. And if you think about what's happening in the industry right now with the wage inflation, and we're all just struggling to find cleaning technicians, right? And it looks like if you just look at what's happening from 1 month to the next in terms of what you're having to offer from a compensation standpoint to attract people, having these numbers is really more important now than it ever was, because without these numbers, you really don't have the data you need to determine what you need to be doing from a pricing standpoint, and what you can be doing from a scheduling and production management standpoint to control costs in other ways to still be profitable. And if you aren't using numbers like this to manage your business, you might wake up one day and find that you're cleaning a bunch of homes, but you don't have nearly as much money left over after doing it than you used to.
Hey Tom, Chris asked about Chris Ears asked about the HCT. What's the certification called from? It's PHC. It's
PHC, Professional House Cleaning Certification Program. It's arcsylearning.com or .org. I can't remember which. I'll look it up. It's an awesome program, and it can be done in a day, and it's relatively inexpensive. And it's a way of demonstrating to your workforce that it's more than just a job. What we're doing here is professional work, and it's a profession. And we get feedback from technicians. It's like, gee, I've had jobs all my entire life, and this is the first time anybody's really invested in me in this way and given me training. I have a certification from a trade association that I can hold in my hand at the end of the process. And
now that it's an all you can eat, they're testing out like that. You're not really having to buy a license per person. So every person you hire, you just get them login instructions to the system. And if they commit to doing it, that's a great first test it's a great first test. Yeah, Chris, a lot of it's from the book, but it's more streamlined for the technician and not as technical. The HCT is we kind of decided was maybe over the head of a lot of technicians. So that's kind of the thought process behind doing it that way.
HCT is an awesome program. I mean, I'm kind of I was part of the team that helped put that program together as well. But PHC is more accessible. It can be done completely online. It can be done in multiple settings. It's more affordable. The idea behind PHC is we wanted to take it to the masses. We wanted to create a program that the important things that all cleaning professionals should know, make it a lot more accessible to them. That was our objective.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, that's the big problem we're all trying to solve right now. And again, everything today, I think we talked about kind of leans into that for me. Cause it's like, I want to make more profits and control these numbers so I can pay people more, because if I don't, I'm going to be without employees here pretty soon. I mean, I can talk about raising my prices and my rates all I want, but if I don't have a plan in place and know my numbers, and the word know my numbers is thrown around a lot, but I mean, I know my numbers deeply, and I'm still worried that I don't have, even as much as I charge, I'm still worried I don't have, enough margin to do the things that it's going to take to keep people happy. Like, our business is shifting underneath us quickly.
That's a good way to put it, Matt. You might be at one point in time, your business might work without even having the data. You just, kind of stumbled upon something, and your prices and your salaries and everything just kind of works. But when the terrain shifts and all of a sudden you have to go ahead and you have to offer more benefits, and you have to pay higher wages, if you don't have the numbers, you don't know what other changes you need to make in your business in order to stay solvent.
Yeah. At first, I thought this was just going to go away pretty quick. Like, we would be a blip. We'll be through all this. It is wild. It has been like nonstop roller coaster this last year.
And when it slows down, nobody knows, but I think it's going to get worse before it gets better.
So Goldman Sachs basically put a prediction that this economy was going to be on fire till 2023 with immense labor shortages to meet the demand of consumers, basically. So there's Google Goldman Sachs, I don't know what it would even be under, but they put out like quarterly reports. Mm-hmm. And one of them that I just read was like, 2023 is when they're predicting the economy might start cooling down.
And all the heat's in the service sector. The hottest part of it is everybody's fighting over the same labor pool that we are.
Exactly. Restaurants. I mean, go and try and order food on Uber Eats during like 5 o'clock when everyone else is trying to figure out what they're doing for dinner.
Try to get an Uber.
Try and get an Uber. Nobody wants to do that stuff right now. Their business models are not working because I can't order food, and Uber Eats is how we survive sometimes with a busy family, right? Like, I'm like, I can't even get my money out of my subscription out of that thing. I'm gonna have to cancel it because, it's never available lately. And so I think a lot of that is basically a window into what everyone else is kind of facing. So yeah, we're the tip of the spear of this. Like, we're all facing it, but we are definitely probably acutely aware of it in our business.
So I guess we are approaching the top of the hour.
Yeah, I think it's a good wrap. Any other quick questions? I think we got a lot covered today. I really appreciate being here.
What's the call to action, Matt? What do you want to say?
Yeah, I was going to go back to that real quick. So if you are interested in jumping on a group demo with me, I'm going to put the link back in the chat one last time. So here's the group. I'm going to throw this all here back in the chat. So open the chat, and there'll be a link to just click on that real quick, and it'll open up a registration for a group demo. Or you can just go to madecentral.com. I'll just put that in there too. And you can just click on the call to action, schedule a demo. That'll open up some time on my calendar, and you can just get one-on-one with me. And I would love to show you the software and show you how I'm getting these numbers and really hopefully staying ahead of all this stuff. I mean, we're all in the same boat together. And if you guys have great ideas, do a webinar for me. If you've got the solution on this hiring situation, please do a webinar so I can solve that too, because I need help. Tom does too. We don't have all the
hit me up. We'll be on smart business moves next week.
Yeah. If you got good ideas at this point, I think we'd all like to hear them. So yeah, be on Smart Business Moves and help us kind of help other people solve this, because and this is the stuff we're talking about probably an hour a day. Like we're getting on and talking about, how are we going to solve this? So all right. Well, great guys. Appreciate you being here. Thanks everyone.
Thanks guys. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.